Y'all, I was on the wrong live. I was on a live on my personal page. I'm sorry. Is this the right live? Amy, why was I on the wrong live? Nobody told me I was on the live on my personal page. Hey, y'all. Welcome to day 5 of our Momversations series. I'm so excited, not because it's our last day, but because we finished. Hey, Kelly. Girl, Amy, I was in there. I'm like, where are the people? Hi, Amy. Hey, y'all. Also, another reason why I'm late today is because I couldn't find my lip gloss. And when you don't wear any makeup, I need something. And so, yeah. Hi, Kiki. Hi, Ima. Hi, guys. Let me get really comfortable. This is going to be such a good conversation. It's our last day, and we have the very amazing, I don't know if I'm loving this scarf. Let me just wear my hair normally, y'all. Okay, there it is. All right. Dang, Kelly, you love it? And I took it off. It's okay. Guys, okay, so it's day 5 of our Momversation series. We've gone really hard every day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I can't believe it. Honestly, I've been working really hard. This year, my word is discipline and excellence and consistency. And just getting to the end of this series just feels so good to my heart. Kunbi's here. I'm so excited. Kunbi, hit join. Sorry, I didn't tell you about that. Amy, tell us, how does you'll see, oh, there it is. She's coming. I just hit, so Kunbi's joining in. There she is. It's working.
Okay. Hi.
Oh, I should have worn that. Oh, Kunbi. I should have worn that one.
Are you serious?
I know. But I know you said dial-up, but you didn't say which one.
Go and change.
Oh, okay, you guys. I'll be right back. Please.
Hi guys, Dami will be back.
Enjoy. Kunbi, talk to the people till I come back.
Okay, let me talk to people. So if you're just joining in, wow, I see my friends are here, the worst group of people. But if you're just joining in, Dami will be right back because she had to do an outfit change because I don't know who to think she was. Hey, Fausto. Okay, this is really odd talking to myself. Hey, Segi. Oh, God. Hey, Layla. Jesus. What a group. But Dami will be right back. She just... Hi, Lohi. Oh, I don't like this group. God. But anyway, I don't know what to do, guys, but Dami will be right back because she went to change. Segi, Dami and I are about to have a conversation. Can you mind your business? Honestly, this is not the group of people that should be on this. Don't be here to judge. Who's she? Anyway, hi, Ada. Oh, hi, Muiwa. What? Hi, Shay. Dami, please, can you hurry up? Hey! Okay,
I'm back, guys. Woo!
Okay. She made it back.
Cool. Okay, mine is pretty much the same, but my words are at the bottom. But
Okay.
Hi guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Okay. This is our last and final conversation, and I need to catch my breath. Kunbi, you're really showing off today. Oh. I like how you're even using your wine. Ha!
So Dami sent me this, and I got it. Just got back into my house yesterday, and oh God. Anyways, this is what I'm going to be doing here. Dami, you know that Segi is not stable.
I know Segi is. You guys, you can see the comments. Don't worry, Segi. Don't worry. We'll come back.
You know that she's not okay.
Okay. So, woo! I catch my breath.
We're matching. Let's go. Please, my friends in the comments, please let me know when I get too loud because I don't have any kind of levels when it comes to my voice. So if I start yelling, please be like, okay, yeah, stop. Let's go. Hi, Dam.
Guys, you can see why Kunbi is. Look at that. So you guys, for our Momversation series, I sent a gift to all of the moms, and I tried to make it all cute, right? I was like, this is what you need for hydration, for libations and all that. But it's really to just say thank you. Thank you for joining me today. You can tell Kunbi and I are friends, and this whole conversation is truly about bringing friends together to just talk about our motherhood journey. I made it a point not to have any questions because I just want you guys to feel our energy and I just want the conversation to be authentic, honestly. Like, everything about social media is fake. Okay, maybe 60% of it. Okay,
Sorry.
maybe 65.
85.
Okay, 85.
Mm-hmm.
And so people are always packaging. That's the word I use.
Mm-hmm.
Things are always packaged, right? Because at the end of the day, people want to be liked. They want to look good. They want to show you their highlight reels. The reason why I wanted to have this conversation, especially with my friends, is because I knew that we could get to a level of authenticity that a lot of people just don't put out there. So thank you so much for joining us. Every conversation has really been based on one of the boxes that I created for our Mother's Day. And the weird thing is, I haven't even been able to sell the box because the conversations have just honestly been so authentic and so life-giving that I'm like, I really can't turn around and then say, go buy a box. You know what I mean? So, Lord,
you can.
I mean, I know, Kunbi, you say that. But my point is, this has been bigger than I thought, that it's become even more than what I thought it would be. And I'm just so grateful to God for that. And I'm so glad that we have you as, hi, Leah. We have you as our final act, because I feel like there's so much that you can add to this conversation. And yeah, okay, so one more thing I wanted to say, because I have to sell these boxes, you guys. This conversation is sponsored by our Mom in Waiting box, which is, I don't think I've ever seen one of those before in the market. And so I thought, you know what? Thanks, Sugar. Sugar, I owe you an email. It's going to be good. So I think I just have to say that, like I didn't see that in the market. And I have so many friends that have been trying to conceive and just had a difficulty with starting their family. And I'm like, it must be really tough for them on Mother's Day. That's where it came from. Like, I really just wanted to think about the people that we don't think about, the individuals that kind of like struggle with that day, that kind of look forward to like skipping the day, and hopefully can like share love and all that good stuff. So Kunbi, before we start, I feel like I should introduce you, but I did not get any kind of formal anything from you. So y'all, Kunbi is a lawyer, first of all. She's a mom of 2. She's a wife. She's a friend. She's what will I say? Do you own a publication? Is that what? She's a media company.
I own something.
Yeah, perfect. And just so many things. She's brilliant. She's smart. She's funny. She is all the things. And I'm so glad we have her. And I know she doesn't want me to say all that, but she really is. I just want to preface that so you can put some respect on her name. Hey. And now that we have respect on her name, Kunbi, did you at some point feel like you would not be a mom?
Wow. Boom.
Boom.
Like you just started.
You know, I'm just trying to say, because we've already wasted time. I went to change. You were drinking champagne.
And then I just
heard
Ara making her sound.
Back. Sugar, you see me, girl.
Like, damn. Wow, you started with the heavy hitter. I did.
I'm just like, we might as well finish with a bang, right?
Yeah, I did. I did feel like at some point that I wouldn't be a mom. I had that period where I felt like it wasn't going to happen. Like before, like if you had asked me, I'd have probably said like, oh no, like, you know, like when you're like narrow tunnel vision, right? Like you think, oh no, so sorry guys.
Please,
clearly.
All right, but this is why it's a candid conversation.
Spoiler alert. Clearly. So much is going on in this house right now. My champagne just popped.
No, it's okay. You are doing fine.
Anyway, so what we were saying, so I did at one point think that I wouldn't be a mom. Obviously because of like the amount of infertility, like it felt like my infertility journey would not come to an end. And so I think at some point, like I just thought like, okay, maybe it's not for me.
Please, you need to get her.
Can you bring her?
Please bring her, because I want to be a part of this life. She's the testimony, so let her be a part of the life.
Anyways, let's chat it up.
So I guess the reason why I asked that is I feel like a lot of people might feel that way in their season where it's like, I don't feel like there's an end to this season, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But also, I guess the question I should have asked first for those that are joining, the reason why I asked you to come in is, can you just even share the beginning? Like, did you always know that, hey, I'm going to have a hard time in the future, from like maybe a checkup that you did when you were younger? Or was it actually when you now decided that, hey, I want to start working on having a family, that you found out that, like, wow, you know, I'm going to have a hard time trying to conceive?
Wow. Sorry, I don't know why these questions are hitting me the way they are. Maybe it's the champagne. But like, can I be very honest? And I don't think I've ever said it to anybody. I've always felt like I would have a hard time having children. And it's not, no reason. There wasn't any particular reason, I promise you. I just felt like, you know, when you just like, I was like, oh God, what about if I would never have children or something? Like, what about, no, like, not that I would never have children. I just always felt like, what about if something is wrong with me and I can't have children? So like, it's so funny that you asked that question, because I've never really actually thought about it. No champagne for you today. But like, it's always been in like at the back of my mind as something. But it's not because, and funny thing is that I don't, as I've said a few times, like I wasn't that person that was always dreaming of children, or like, you know, that I really wanted. To be honest, I wasn't even 100% sure if I wanted, like, just as an adult growing up, it wasn't something that was primarily on my mind. But you know, when you just think about something and you're like, I wonder if I would struggle having children. And then when I started having periods.
But was it because you knew people who struggled having kids, or it was just a random thought?
It was a random thought. It was a random thought. So I didn't really know anybody then. I mean, I'm talking about like early teens. Like, not just, you know what I mean? Just a random thought. And it's so interesting. Like, I promise, I don't think I've ever told anybody that. So I started having periods at 14. I was one of the later people in my boarding house. So I thought that was like, you know, like, wow, thank God, it's now finally here. But I started getting period pains, I would say probably around 16, 17. At 18, my period pains had gotten really bad. And I went to the doctor, I remember, and they said, that they would want to do, I can't remember what it was. I think they said, have I had a pap smear before, like a pelvic exam? And then they're like, oh, long story short, they were like, oh, they don't do, this is not a flex. I promise you, this has nothing to do with anything. But they're like, oh, they don't do it for virgins. So that I can just, like, it's not a problem. It's not something I need to think about. And so it was just a thing, like,
I love how it's not a flex. It is what it is.
It is what it is. I was in Kansas, like, you know what I'm saying? There's nothing to do there now. So,
it's not
there's anything happening there.
Come and tell Kunbi, but okay.
If you're from Kansas, you know there ain't nothing to do there, so that's not the point. But like, so like, I started having, long story short, I started having heavy and painful periods then. So obviously, it started to become a thought. I asked my mom if she had heavy periods. For sure, that was not her own portion. So I said, okay, no problem. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. But like, I continued to have really heavy and bad periods, and so once that started happening a lot, I started hearing words like endometriosis in the space, like endometriosis, fibroids. They checked for fibroids eventually. And like they said, there wasn't anything there. So it wasn't that. But like, you know, you start hearing whispers of this isn't normal. But what do you do? Do you know what I mean?
Well,
like,
but you were in college. You probably were just like, were you one of those like, I'll worry about that when I get there?
That's who I am in general, and I think that's one of my worst traits, is that it's future Kunbi's problem, not like current Kunbi's problem. So it never really became a priority to me to get checked out in any form, to be honest. And then like, also once it wasn't until I got to law school, and that was like 21 to 24, that it started becoming like a conversation, especially one time when I bled for 30 days straight, and like period blood. Sorry guys. But like, bled for 30 days straight, that it was like, okay, you know, it's like something is not right.
So this was in law
school. This was in law school. And still, guess what? I went to the doctor, they put me on IVs, stopped the bleeding through birth control, and sent me on my way. So it wasn't really something that, you know, really became a thing. So all this started to hint towards me being nervous about what my fertility was going to look like. But at the same time, like I said, it wasn't like I was prioritizing having children. So that wasn't a thing that was really like pushing in my head.
And then you got married.
And then I got married. And then we said, oh, let's wait a couple of years to let's wait a couple of years to get pregnant or whatever. Like, please, I beg. Like, we have things that we want to do. So, but then, you know, I don't know.
Nothing was happening in Kansas. So
And now there's lots to be happening. There's stuff I had to do after that now. So like then like it wasn't really a priority for children. It was just more like go like we were having a good time as we were young.
So
We got married young,
so pretty much you're like
if it happens, it happens.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So like after a year, it was like, okay, for real now. If it happens, it happens, right? Like let's just keep trying. And then we weren't using any protection. We weren't using anything, but still, like, it wasn't happening, and it happened. And then my best friend started to have children. But thankfully, they started to have children real early. So me too, I was still able to side-eyeing them, like, oh, sorry to you guys. You know what I mean? Like, what a thing. But, like, like, it started, like, it's been a year, like, 18 months. Like, we're still going. There's nothing. But even then, I promise you, that wasn't even the thing that, like, it was like, okay, maybe it's just going to take a little longer. Do you know what I mean? Like, maybe it's just going to take a little longer. Some people, it just takes longer. But then I had a medical, what is it? An emergency. I had, like, really sharp pains. Oh, someone said they can't hear anything. So I wonder if...
You guys hear us? I think I can hear well. If you can hear us, can you just let us know? Can you guys hear us? Maybe they can't hear. I feel like others would have said something, right?
Okay, somebody said they can. Okay.
Hi, Simone. Okay, they can hear us.
So yeah, so actually what ended up happening, I'll never forget. I was going to Nigeria for my best friend's wedding, yeah. And I think it was like maybe...
Thank y'all.
I don't remember if it was before or after her wedding. Actually, it was after her wedding. So I've gotten back. And my friend and daddy was in our house. Like, we're just gisting with her and my husband, and just sitting. And then all of a sudden I had this sharp pain, like really sharp pain. I wasn't on my period.
While in Nigeria?
No. I had just gotten back. I couldn't remember. Like, you know when time starts to... You start to lose track of time. But like, it was after, and I had this sharp pain that would not, like, you know when you just have this sharp pain in your body. I couldn't even sit up. I was just stuck in that position. We were all having a really good time. It was game night, and then I literally could not move. They left me, like, I just had to lay flat in one position all day, and it just persisted for like a day. And like, not joking, I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't do anything. So I called my OBGYN. And they were like, oh, the OBGYN called, I'll never forget, he was like, oh, he is on vacation. So maybe I can come in like he'll be back in 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever. Long story short, I just randomly called the hospital near me, went there, booked an appointment with an OBGYN that I didn't know, and I just went in because I was like, something isn't right. I'm not on my period. So it wasn't even a period pain of any sort. And I mean, like, it was just a random time. I'm like, okay, so the 2 weeks that I even have that I'm supposed to enjoy myself before a period comes, like, here I am, like, in sharp, like, intense pain. So I went to the doctor, and he looked at me. He's like, oh, can I do an ultrasound? He does an ultrasound. I don't even think he's 2 seconds in. I would never forget how, like, dead on. He just said, you have endometriosis. I'm like, wait a minute. Not because endometriosis was so shocking to me. I'd heard whispers of endometriosis, like, through law school, because every time I had a heavy period, passed out a little bit, did this, did that.
They're like, passed out?
Yeah, sometimes the pain would be a lot. Yeah, but you know what's so funny? Because I knew some other people that had period pains like that. I just thought, I thought it was a cool thing. Not cool, but it's like, okay, it is what it is. Like, so people just have intense periods. Like, you don't really think, I don't know how to explain it, but you don't really think that it's something sinister or it's anything like that. You just really think that it's part of being a woman. Like, maybe some people are blessed not to have period pains. You don't really think anything at all. And it wasn't every time. I just knew that I had really heavy periods. Like, like, pain. But guess what? Not to put my sister on blast. My sister has the same, like, issue. Like, you know what I mean? So I just thought it was, like, maybe something in our area, or whatever. And long story short, and then one of my friends, two bookies. Oh, sorry. Like, one of my friends, anonymous. Sorry, bookie. Anonymous. One of my friends also, like, she had been diagnosed with endometriosis. She had surgery, but still, like, it was all the same thing where they kept saying, oh, we won't know until we have to open you up. That was what they used to say then. So I was really taken aback when the man said, you have endometriosis on top ultrasound. So what he ended up telling me was that I had endometriosis, and the reason why he suspected that I had endometriosis is because he found a really large cyst on the side, like that had attached to one ovary, but was so big that it had now combined and joined the other ovary together. So they were both like glued to this really large cyst. And based on his ultrasound, he found it was a chocolate cyst, which usually means or indicates that it's something called an endometrioma. And so an endometrioma is really resultant from endometriosis. Long story short, he's like, so that this cyst doesn't rupture and I lose like both my ovaries or whatever, that he would recommend that I have surgery. And that's what was causing the pain, basically. So, you know, like it was getting bigger and like he recommended surgery. So, of course, I said, okay, thank you so much for coming. I called my mommy. And that was where like the whole thing started. It was literally during that trip. I just remember thinking I was really bloated at my best friend's wedding. But I thought it was, you know, like even people were like, everybody say, oh, like, you know, marriage life is good or whatever. But like, you know, it was just a combination of things. And so that was how my story with endometriosis started. But like I had the surgery. The doctor was like, oh, the surgery, like when he opened me up, the endometriosis was everywhere. Endometriosis is basically, I'm not a medical professional, so like I don't even honestly know 100% what it is, but it's like, you know, where abnormal cells are growing where they shouldn't, or certain cells, which usually are constrained to like a certain place, are growing elsewhere, and it's causing like inflammation. It's a very complex disease, so I don't want to say the wrong thing. But like, basically I thought, okay, so the idea now is that we'll remove this endometriosis and I'll be able to have like, okay, hopefully it doesn't impact fertility. I wonder if that's the reason why I've not been able to get pregnant. Mm-hmm. Let's see how this goes. He says, okay, like he said, when he opened me up, the endometriosis was everywhere. He said it was in my bowels, it had completely consumed my, which one of it? It was my appendix. And it was just everywhere. So, but that he did his best to take out as much as possible and save the ovaries. And so long story short, he's like, okay, go for 6 months and try to get pregnant and then come back. Spoiler alert, 6 months came, nothing happened. 1 year came and he's like, oh, let me recommend you to, like, it was when I now got back, he's like, okay, no lie, Sha. Like, the endometriosis was a lot. See? So yeah, stage 4 endo was what I had as well. And so like he said, okay, the endometriosis was a lot. Like, he was hoping that my body would, like, you know, maybe, hopefully, you know, there's always a percentage, there's always a chance. But that he actually thinks because of the damage, like the amount it was and also how it had consumed my ovaries, and like, you know, the whole idea of like everything, that he would want me to see a fertility specialist and speak to them. I saw the fertility specialist. He said that he thought my chances were really, like, he just said that he thought my chances were going to be a bit challenging because of this. He saw the pictures and that I should probably consider IVF after X. Like, he didn't even say IUI, COVID.
So normally
just what he said
like,
to me.
That's like,
yeah, like
it's like the end, not the end, but like one of like, after you
yeah.
For
me,
right?
The way it was put, like, it's always been portrayed in movies, like IVF was the last card. Like, you know, the kind of thing that you did, like, after you have tried,
everything.
like, when you come to do your testimony in church, you will tell them that, okay, finally, I now did IVF, and then I got like 7 children. I was like, you know, the kind of thing, and we had already seen like Octomom and stuff like that. I was like, okay, last, we'll do IVF. Last, we'll do IVF, and then we'll have the baby. It is interesting to me that was like what I'm
that was the first resort, right? That was like the first recommendation.
No, not even that. I just think it's so interesting to me that that's literally the beginning of my infertility story, and not even the middle or the end of it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we ended up moving across like to another state, so had to leave that specialist, and then we started seeing another one, and I remember just speaking to him, and he's like, okay, I'm going to be real with you. I don't know if any of these things are going to work, but we will try IVF last, and then we'll go there.
Okay.
Yeah, no, he said because insurance would cover certain like infertility things that could happen. So stuff like there's a hormone called Clomid.
Yeah.
There's things like that you can try that would like boost your fertility and possibly raise the like chances of you being able to get pregnant. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, nice. Like, so this story is even going to be short. So like, you know, like let's just try this Clomid. Maybe I'll even have twins.
So you always had hope. That's what it's sounding like. You were always.
That's the thing.
Like, when you had a meeting with your doctor and you came up with a plan, it gave you hope. You're like, oh, if we do the surgery, I'm good. If I take the Clomid, I'm good. Mm-hmm.
So, you know, that is actually what I would say as someone who struggled with infertility. Literally all you have is hope. It's the only thing that keeps you going every single morning, because infertility is a full-time job. Trying to conceive, like, there's nothing else. I had a full-time job, and that took like, oh, I'm getting like, oh, about it. Like, it just became this thing that I had to accomplish. You know what I mean? So, sorry.
No,
Like, it makes me angry sometimes, like, just thinking about it. I can imagine that it's complex for everybody. But so yeah, so that was the thing. So it was like, okay, let's try Clomid. I remember that another one of I have many friends. So like another of my friends, like, okay, so now my friends have started getting married now. Like, more of my friends have started getting married. So it was like, okay, you know, I remember me and my friend Maria were like, oh, let's try and get pregnant. I'll call your names. I'm so sorry.
I was about to say, Kunbi, you know what?
There's no anonymity with me. But like, I remember my friend Maureen and I were talking about, oh, let's get, so we'll get pregnant together. That's fertile, bitch. Listen, I remember we said it X. I was telling her about some things like, oh, this is what I'm going to be trying now. You know, like, I'm ready. Because we already started getting those questions, obviously. We're already like 2.5 years down. People are like, like, you're not getting pregnant, if I'm not ready or something. Like, you know, like, everybody means
also
well.
a lot of pressure. You said it's a full-time job.
Of course.
The amount of, I think here's a moment for us to just do a PSA. Stop asking women when they're going to get pregnant, if they're pregnant, what their plans are. Like, you legit, we talked about this yesterday. You don't know what people are going through.
You really don't.
Invasive. Like, leave people alone.
You really don't. And I think it's always what I really try to say it in the nicest way possible, that obviously I really pray that nobody ever has the experience of having to say, oh, or like, damn, that's how it goes. Do you know what I mean? Because it's unfortunate. And you know, the thing about it is that we were like probably in our friend group as a couple, right? We're probably one of the earliest people to get married, right? So like, a lot of people were still not, like, you know, married or getting married at that point. So I guess it was new for everybody. Do you know what I mean? Like, so in everybody's head, like, sometimes I like, what maturity has helped me realize is that everybody, quote unquote, at least most people, would mean well in this thing. So it's always more like,
right.
We talk about everything else now.
Right.
Like, because one thing I am is mostly candid. I would say like 99.9, but with this, I wasn't. So it was like, okay, like, oh, are you guys trying? We're like, oh, no, we're not ready. We're still waiting, that kind of, because you don't want to get into the whole thing about how you're still,
like, no,
the best answer. Our parents, even our parents, like, started to ask questions like, oh, when you have this, like, you know, everybody's eager for the next, what they feel like is the next traditional step in, like, you know, the development. So like, it just became one of those things that's like, like, you know, you're just waiting. So like, for me, like I said, me and Maria were like, oh, like, we'll try. She got pregnant, and I was still like, the Clomid didn't even, I don't even know what it did inside my body. I'm sure that thing was like, girl, it is not stop. Like, so I think we're now probably in like mid 2015. And
so did they give you a timeline? They're like, use Clomid for how long?
Oh no, it was just, I think it was the 2-cycle thing.
Okay.
But one thing I will say is that the doctor then, at this point in Pennsylvania, was very, very truthful with me. He's like, I can hear his voice in my head. Kunbi, we're going to try everything we can. The Clomid, I came back, he said, you know, I was really, really hopeful. And then, okay, so then I think it was at this point that he said, okay, he wanted to test. He had already tested me, and I sped up from that. They had done like tests on both of us, and low-key, oh God forgive me, I was hoping that was at least, they say it's Olamide that was causing the problem, so that so it would not be like long.
So you could have a break, Abby, so you know that it's not you.
Okay, so that at least, or maybe if his mom is asking, I'll be like, well,
yeah,
let's all focus on our children. I'm joking. But like, more like deep down, I just wanted to feel like it wasn't me that was holding us back, especially I wanted to, especially knowing what I had come, like my surgical background and things like that. I was just really hoping that it wasn't that. So then like, so they did that, but then they tested me. So the Olamide zone came back, and then they tested me, and they're like, they started using words like AMH, FSH, like just hormone, you know, these words that you now start Googling every single thing. And they're like, well, you have low ovarian reserve, especially since you had endometriosis surgery. Like in the process of like getting the endometriosis, they're also scraping off other things. And every woman is born with a certain, like women that have eggs, like every woman, I'm not sure also, but every woman is born with a certain amount, like the amount of eggs in the beginning of their life cycle. So like, you know, it depletes every year, all these things. Long story short, they're like, oh, like I remember I was 29 at this point, and they're like, oh, well, your ovarian reserve is pointing towards like an early 40-year-old and things like that. And that, but like basically it's going to be tough, like to get quality eggs, but that we will try. And this is where IVF comes in, because then you'll be able to get as much eggs as possible, the best quality of eggs. Long story short, he's like, long story short, we tried a bunch of things. We did an IUI, and then he's like, we need to do IVF. Given the kind of hormone levels you're having, this doesn't look promising. And we need to stop wasting time and try and prioritize what we can get now. I remember that it was now December. My husband, like, we're supposed to be going home. I was a bridesmaid at our cousin's wedding. I was supposed to be going home, and then we still hadn't told our family that we were trying. I think at this point we had told our parents, like our immediate family. And so we're like, okay, let's just say that, oh, Kunbi can't come. What did they say? I can't remember what lie we said to them, but like, oh, I didn't have papers, because you know that's easy enough.
That's the
default lie for Nigerians.
Yeah, just say you don't have papers. My papers, I can't come.
Yeah, so they said that, oh, something with my papers, like I couldn't make it home. Then we started. I would never forget. That was the first time that was our first round of IVF. We were so excited, so excited, because we had finally come to the last level of the game. It was time for us to get into the IVF that we've been talking about. Like, and you know, now I was preparing for twins, because we're going to do IVF and we're going to have multiples. And I just remember thinking, like, we started it, and my doctor was like, because of my ovarian reserve, that we would he would do the highest, like he would try, and I don't know what the highest is, but like he would do high levels of the follicle stimulating hormone, FSH. Well, I don't know if that's what that means, or honestly, the name of the drug was Follistim.
We'll Google.
Yeah, it was Follistim. I'll never forget. Like, we had everything. There was I think I was on like a protocol that was so intense, because they wanted to get as much as possible. So we started doing it. I was taking the highest dosage that was permitted, at least from my age or whatever. And we kept going. It was a week. We went in. He's like, it's not really doing this. Let's up it. So we started doing it 3 times a day. I started putting that again, and it was a lot. It was just
so
more.
This is more. You like injecting
yourself. So I started off, I hadn't really done syringes then, so I was very nervous about the taking shots or whatever. So my husband, thankfully, is a doctor. So at first, for the first few days, he was doing it. After that, honestly, one thing anybody will tell you, anybody that's graduated from IVF, will tell you that at some point, injections don't even phase you. Other people, like, there's nothing you can tell me now. I can take a shot anywhere, literally, and also with it. Well, sorry. Anyway, but. So I started doing those shots myself, and like we started doing a really heavy schedule. I even was going to the doctor to take another shot, because that one I really couldn't take it myself, and my husband was working. Oh, wow. I get there, and I will never forget. I just remember him doing the ultrasound, and he said, I don't even know, people can't come, Kunbi. I have nothing. Like, you literally, all I see is 1. And that's feeling, but you know me, I can be very optimistic. So I was like, okay, it's just 1, like it takes, let's do this. He's like, no, that this cycle won't work. This is after pumping myself for, I think, 2.5 weeks or 3. I was going hard, and he said it was 1, and it wasn't even a solid 1. And he said, this cycle has failed. We haven't even gotten to the cycle, to be fair. And he said, we're going to have to convert this into an IUI. And then I was like, okay, maybe this is God's plan for me. Like, maybe do you know, I feel so embarrassed saying this. No, I don't. But like everything, in all these cycles, I was preparing for the testimony. So always I could imagine myself testifying about it. Like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, I could imagine myself saying it to someone, like, oh, Like we were at the brink of IVF, and then it got turned into an IUI, and that's how I got pregnant. So like for me, I was like, okay, let's go.
So
It's
every
an
time
IUI.
you had a curveball, you were like, oh, this is just what ushered me into my testimony, right?
Yeah,
You're like, oh,
yeah. Like this is
okay,
just the story.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And so like we converted into an IUI. I felt really awful
But what
because
is an IUI?
so it's intrauterine insemination. Guys, it probably doesn't mean that.
Yeah.
But basically it's when they use, like, they'll take the sperm and like put it through a tube into your where you're supposed to where it's supposed to go, so that it can then find the egg. Like, you know, they're helping it along the way.
Okay.
So you put it in exactly, like, they time it well. You take a trigger shot, you're like about to ovulate. So they time it so perfectly that so that if you ovulate, then see, one thing, we'll get to it in a minute. My sister just responded, as you can see.
Yeah.
My assistant, infertility expert. Because my sister and I Googled everything. There is nothing that's one my sister has always known. So before every appointment, and my sister was like in her early 20s, like barely even in this thing, she would tell me, this is what we're doing, this is where we're going, this is what we're doing.
Well done, Jack.
So like so that was what it was, and they would inject it up, and like, you know, that was the perfect timing, and then you will find it. So I thought, okay, wow, I don't even have to do IVF. God said that wasn't the path for me. I just had to do the IUI and I would get pregnant. You wait. Long story short, I did not get pregnant. I had my period, like, and it was time for and then the worst part about it was that my husband and I had to travel for our cousin's wedding during that, like, right after. So he's eager, waiting for the results, and there are no results. So we had to go back again, this time in January, and I just remember feeling gutted. Like, okay, here we go. He's like, okay, I'm going to need a couple of months. I'll be back. We need to figure out what's going on. And I don't, like, in the back of my ear, what I remember mentioning, like what I could always remember mentioning, and the reason why I went into this whole story about endometriosis is because every appointment started with, but the nature of endometriosis, the nature of endometriosis. And I just remember thinking, I'm so tired of hearing the nature of endometriosis. Like, why is this now my lot in life? Like, I have to keep hearing about this thing. You told me I had endometriosis, they did surgery. I thought that was the end of it. You told me that I could do this here and that it would be this and that would be the end of it. You told me this and then just kept coming. But we prepared, like, hope. There's literally all you have is hope. Otherwise, what the hell are you going to do? At the end of the day, that's it. Like, otherwise you can't get up every morning and present yourself to go to work or present yourself to be a functional human being, because literally everything is hanging, your sanity is hanging on that thread of hope, just being able to make it every single day. And like, looking back now, my infertility time, I always think, wow, it was such it doesn't seem as long as it seemed, but like for me, it felt like 10 years of my life.
Sure.
Like every single day.
Yeah.
Like, you are deep in it. And then the worst part, and anybody can tell you, like any like inspirational speaker or whatever can tell you anything in this world, but the feeling of shame, the feeling of I am not working the way I am supposed to work, is like the worst feeling. And it's not even about, like, I know there's a larger discussion about women feeling this way in general, but just even when your body isn't doing what it's like, something that they've said in the textbook that it's supposed to do, man. So like, it was just that. And then we now got in, like, after a while, the doctor called and was like, oh, let's come back, we have a plan. It's like, okay, because of endometriosis, we're going to try something called a microflare, long story short, they're going to try a new protocol, a microflare protocol, where it's going to be like, okay, because of endometriosis, they've seen a lot of success with it. They would do, like, I would be on hormones, like, I'll be on injections for a much longer period before they start to put blah 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 in, like the stimulation. What else do I have to do? I mean, well, what else?
Like, yes. Like,
let's go.
Yes.
And let me just put it here. Like, I don't know why. I don't know if it was our insurance or whatever. None of this was covered. So each time they said this, we're bringing out $20,000 from where? Anyways, long story short, like, that's.
Can I ask you how much? How much?
I looked back. We definitely spent $120,000 on trying to have a child. These kids are expensive. Anyways, but let's leave that because insurance does cover it for a lot of people. There's probably like it's a very expensive journey. And then but I'm grateful to our parents. Like once we told our parents that like things weren't working, like even down to my sister that didn't even have money, like all of a sudden they were just putting their money down and like
takes us back to community.
Oh, that is literally my story is about community. That's the only thing that kept me going. Like the more I was able to open my mouth and say this is what is happening, the more people were meeting me exactly like wherever they could find me. So man, and then so it just kept going, and then I'll never forget. Like I'm trying to skip over this particular one IVF story because the next one when it actually so we did that IVF. That was one that like so we did what he said, and we started like I would go to the doctor and be like, okay, it's not many because one of during this process they found out that the ovary that really hosted that cyst was actually not responding to any kind of this thing. So what ended up happening was I'm sorry, but it was like a dud.
Yeah,
it was dormant. Yeah, it wasn't doing anything. So like it was now all depending on my left ovary. God bless its heart. And so like every time they would go, they would say, oh, well, we see six or so follicles. Some women see like 20, God knows, or something. Like it's promising, but at least all we need, like now they started saying all we need is one. Mm-hmm. Before when they were saying, like all we need, like like because really.
But that's also hope. That's hope.
Yeah, that's the hope. So we did that. I will never forget. We actually made it this time. We made it to the point where it's like, oh, looks like we're gonna have a cycle. Whatever we get, we will get. We actually got to that point. Anybody that's had IVF where they're like, okay, it's time for the retrieval. I went under, they put me there, and then you wake up and they tell you how many eggs they were able to retrieve. They're like, oh, it looks like we got 6. We'll let you know each day. Anybody that's had IVF, everybody knows that it's not a matter of how many will fertilize. So they did that. They'll call you the next day to tell you how many fertilized. We did. So they got 6 eggs. They said 6 eggs came out. I think 5 were what they call mature. And then they said only 2 fertilized. Okay. At least 2 have fertilized. He said, okay. He said 2 have fertilized. That was day 1. And he's like, oh, at least we have 2. That's a big deal. Like we never got into this point before. You start to pray. And me and my sister were on what's it called? Like forums. Like because you don't know, like the thing about it, because infertility sometimes is so shrouded, which I'm really grateful now that a lot of people are speaking up and sharing their stories. There's no blueprint to look at. So my sister and I are scrambling the internet, like chatting with people in Canada and all these places, and they're all talking about or reading other people's stories. And that's how we started to like we saw something about oh, it's like doesn't matter, it just takes one. We'll see those stories where like I had 1 egg, I did 1 embryo. So we had 2 embryos, and they're like, oh, like the next day they called and said, oh, those 2 embryos are still holding up. So I was like, yes, like, these 2 embryos will now, one just needs to get to the end, and that will be a thing. And then they called me like that afternoon. They're like, oh, because I only have 2, they feel like they have the best chance of just putting it back in me on what they call day 3. And like, to give my body the best chance, like really, they believe that it's probably has a better chance inside me than outside, since it's just 2.
Because so normally what it would stay out.
Normally they keep it to day 5. The reason why they keep it to day 5 or day 6 is because generally, like during biology, I wish I had paid attention during that class, but like the cells will split, the embryos will grow, and everything will happen. And they like, because of the amount, like cells can stop arrest at some point during the process. So they like to wait to when it reaches a stage called blastocyst and Morolla, I think. But because, I don't remember which one it is, but blastocyst for sure. And that they want it because then it has it's already done a lot of its expanding division and everything. And then it's almost at the point of implantation. And they believe that if then you're able to select the ones that have a better chance of surviving at that point. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that's not like abnormal, unhealthy or anything like that. But because I only had 2, they were like, we will have to transfer it at day 3 before it's even at any of those stages, because they want to give it the best shot. My sister and I went back on the internet to look at day 3 stories. Are there any day 3 success stories? We saw day 3 success stories. So what? Honestly, what else can you do?
Yeah.
So I went back to my doctor, they transferred them, and that's when, this is it. I started looking on the internet, worth the weights outfits and all those things because I was, like I said, I was always preparing for the
this had to be it, right? After everything else, this had to be.
Yeah. So so like we did that, and it was now time to wait 2 weeks to be able to test for the positive pregnancy. During that period, you're on an injection called progesterone, and anybody that's been on progesterone knows that progesterone mimics pregnancy symptoms. Not only does it mimic pregnancy symptoms, it also mimic period symptoms, because pregnancy and period have one line.
5 and 6. Yeah.
So you're always whether deciding or not. So I started to get all these feelings, so I was really hopeful that I was pregnant.
I'm so
like, honestly, like thinking back about it now is like so crazy, because I always try to, like, even when I'm sharing the story, I always try to stay on this side and not really like delve into it, because if I do, I can't, like, it's a part of my life that I can't go back from.
Sort of dealing with.
Yeah. So like we did, I will never forget, that was like we had the progesterone, like, and they say not to test before that day. I started testing. Long story short, my period started the day before it was time to test. So like it was horrible. That period of my life is the part I hate to go back to. I've never been so devastated in my life. And I think because also we had told our family, I think we had tried to tell a few friends that, okay, you know what, because this is the IVF that they've been talking about.
This is IVF.
This is the IVF. This is it. So I would never forget, just like, I would never forget calling my mom and just screaming on the phone because she had been praying along. I just remember thinking, like, I don't know if I can go on. Like, I'm so tired. I'm so tired. Like, and the disappointment, I can remember the call on the phone. The nurse called me, and I just remember, like, Olamide had said, oh, before you get on the call, call me. I want to be there. I want to know exactly when you know, because we're so hopeful.
You just knew.
Yeah. And I will never forget, like, she just started saying, I'm sorry. I didn't remember half of the other things, but she's like, this wasn't the one. And we need to, like, I know that it's no way. I don't remember what she was saying, to be honest. Like, I don't remember what she was saying. And it just, like, from there, I think I don't know if I left my room for like a month. I'm not even exaggerating. Like, I don't know what I did. I actually don't remember a lot of it. I just remember my mom, like, having to pause, like she was about to board a flight from, I remember, and she called my aunt and said, like, you have to call Kunbi, something is wrong. Like, I was just screaming. Like, you know, the thing about infertility is, like, you start looking for community anywhere you can find it. And I remember, like, one of my husband's friends, Tito, who's my friend now, Tito, don't be upset. Like, because she don't think that I'm trying to do this thing, but, like, she had spoken about, like, she had lost a child, like, you know, like, she had spoken about that. Like, she's one of the people that I had thought had been so honest about their story. So I reached out to her. Like, you know what, you start reaching out to strangers. That's what desperation. Like, to me, not strangers, but you know what I mean? Like, actually, I reached out to strangers. I reached out to people, like, there was this woman I had read a blog post about. Like, I reached out to her and I was like, I need help. Sorry.
It's okay. It's okay.
Sorry. Like, see, this is, Dami, I really hate you.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
But, like, you start reaching out to strangers because nobody understands what you are. You just need somebody to tell you that it's going to be okay. And so I just remember being so desperate. Like, that's the only word I can use. Like, desperate. Like, you know how in Nigerian movies, like, you just see people going into, this is the point where you start going to Babalawo.
Yeah.
This is the plot twist. This is the plot twist. Because you think you've been desperate before. You've not been desperate until you're trying to have a child. Like, money is one thing, or this is another thing. Maybe even if jail is another thing. You've not been desperate until you're begging to have a child. Until you are like, you will try anything. So I was just talking to her and I was just crying. And it just became a whole thing. Like I couldn't. Like, and even the doctor wasn't calling me. Even the doctor didn't know what to do. And then I remember we went to the appointment, and what did he say? The first few words were the nature of endometriosis. Some that's how I now learned that, oh, like if you have endometriosis at a certain level, that your eggs become so hard, and so it's possible that you can't even get, like, fertilization is like, the rate is low, blah blah blah. You just start hearing things that you don't even realize, like you need to, you've not heard before. So my sister and I went back. It's me and Shay as usual, like, and Bolane, like, I told, like, this is oh god, my friend Leila and I will sit at this point, like, it was just like, this is what I'm saying, like, my friends knew at this point, so I started telling them, and I started really getting into it. Like,
can I ask you a quick question? Because you were in the room for 1 month, but then you just talked about how you picked back up. I
picked back up because I felt like I didn't have one person that I didn't even mention. Like, my father-in-law came to come and stay with me. He came from Nigeria, and he, like, when we were waiting for the 2 weeks, he just stayed, like, just so that Kunbi wasn't alone, because they had to go to work. So, like, you feel like everybody's waiting. Do you know what I mean? Everybody's so invested. Sorry. You feel like everybody's so invested in the result, right? Like, you've told. So that was another thing where, like, after this particular round, this round shook all of us. Like, Olamide, we had saved the pictures of the embryos. He put it in his Bible, and then one day he was just about to leave for work, and then he just burst into tears and was like heaving. And I'm just like, God. Oh God, sorry. Anyways, so this is how people just be crying on Instagram Live or what?
I mean, I don't know how we ended up here.
So yeah, like, it just became so sad. You know what I mean? And everybody was, like, you know, checking in and things like that. Like, my friend of mine, Tayo, had, sorry, Tayo, oh God, really spreading everybody's gist.
Sorry.
Had done IUIs. She had done IUIs, and so, like, when I was going through IUI, I was like, Tayo did IUI and got pregnant. Do you know what I mean? So I had carried her along, and so we couldn't understand what was going to. And, you know, this time I like, at this point, I was so active with what was IL Perfect at that point, which is Perfect now. And so you're there sharing all these stories of, like, people
baby shower.
You're sharing cute babies every day. Like, if you go into my old personal account, you see, like, where I'm just posting things like, God will never carry you where you can't go. Like, every Bible verse in this world, I was sharing it at that point, because it's just like, you're sharing all this happy stuff, but, like, your life is really in shambles. At least it feels like it's in shambles. So that, like, we had that failed IVF, I think January, February, maybe February. I couldn't do anything. It wasn't until, like, April that we went to the doctor, and he's like, oh, he's been calling me trying to get my appointment. I just could not make it. So I eventually went, and he looked sad. I don't know if he was acting, but he looked sad. And even she's like, the nurse, Robin, like, she was just looking at, she's like, we don't know. Like, it felt like they were saying they didn't even know what to do. Like, he had to call in another expert or whatever. And he, they all of a sudden there was a new doctor involved as well. And she was an endometriosis expert. So she was now explaining to me how there's a hard shell, blah, blah, blah. And that what they think they need to do first is try and address the endometriosis and maybe silence my body. So they put me on a drug called Lupron. Lupron, if anybody has had Lupron before, you can put it in the comments. But Lupron is a mind fuck. Like, Lupron would start you on something that you've not even realized that you're going on. So with Lupron, you will have headaches. With Lupron, you will have menopause symptoms. With Lupron, you will have this. With Lupron, you will have weight gain. By my 30th birthday, which was like the next month, I couldn't recognize myself.
Wow.
And I was so determined to, like, still, like, I'm someone that's so bent on celebration.
Yeah.
And so when people say I'm extra, it's really, like, it's a compliment to me, because I will always be extra. Yeah. Like, I will always be that person that's trying to, like, celebrate every single moment, because I know how much work has gone into each happy moment. So with Lupron, I'm telling you, you don't even see people are mentioning what they went through.
Joint pain,
There is pain,
flashes,
there is hot flashes.
I'm seeing different people are saying different things.
Mm-hmm.
Small said she had to do it. It was horrible.
Yeah.
Guys, I've never even heard of this drug before. Let's show you how, like...
Sorry. Yeah. So you're basically, like, and everybody still expect, like, you know, the thing about it, especially when it's shrouded in, like, you know, it's not as if people really give time off for infertility. Do you know what I mean? Like, to really try, like, so everybody's still expecting you to show up or, like, be present while you are literally a burning cauldron of everything, God knows. Between the weight gain, the bone sensitivity, the weakness, the this, the that, and the headaches.
This is crazy. Kunbi, you're literally saying these, you're naming this, and it's like, it's almost like, I know you're not reading, like, I'm reading people say the same exact thing.
Yeah. Like, and I'm sorry for anybody that this is triggering, because I know how, like, this side of my life I always try to stay away from. And then, like, spoiler alert,
there she is.
But so yeah, then like like it just kept going. And the thing about it is, though, another thing that they mentioned is that every IVF cycle, because IVF is something where they're pumping you with hormones to try and harvest as much as possible, it's depleting your egg bank. It's depleting your supply, because obviously you're still left with a static amount of eggs going
like
in.
The cure is
also
like
the thing, because it doesn't leave you the same. If you ask anybody that's done IVF, like, you don't recognize your body afterwards. You don't recognize, like, it's not the same. It's going through something hellish. So when people say things like, oh, like, it's the easy way out, or like this thing, like, I'm proof that it's not the easy way out. I know women who've done IVF, they've done tens of cycles and don't even end up with anything. So, like, we know, no, not the champagne. So, like, it's really, let's see if I can get that from her. It's really something that really it changes you as a person. It changes you. I'm not the same person I was when like, just like, you know how we say that you're not the same person when you became a mother. You're not the same person when you started infertility, like when you started like fighting infertility. And then, see, the fertile African woman is saying, like, you don't even know what it's going to do to the things that you already had, like, in there. Sorry.
Okay.
So anyways, we went back. They're like, oh, but we have it. We feel like we have like a thing. So what we're going to do is try and silence your body for an extended amount of time, and then kind of jolt it into start it up again. So we did that. Like, this actually went on. Like, I just could not get back into this thing. So for the rest of the year, we did nothing until it was approaching December.
Wow.
In fact, we kept trying. They'll put me off. They'll test my hormones, but they really wanted to make an extended stay. And so in December, I remember that Olamide was like, oh, like, okay, so this time we cannot afford to. We actually had done another cycle. It didn't work. So we're like, okay, but they put us back on the loop run. Yeah, but that cycle was a blur. So then they said, so I remember November came. I remember Olamide and I really had a pep talk, like, we're not going to let this one break us again, because what happened in February we could not, it really it broke us apart, like, us as humans. And so, like, we can't do that again. I don't remember which one of my sister's best friends called me, and apparently my sister was in the club. You know, she do drink. And that she was wailing in the club, and she said, I just want my sister to be happy. And, like, that's how much of a problem it became. Like, not problem, but, like,
it was everybody's.
It was us. It was everybody's weight. My friends, like, it was our weight to carry.
Parents, everybody. It affects everyone.
So in December, I'll never forget that one. But you don't forget. So whenever I say I will never forget, it's because you don't forget. Every single mark, every scar I have on my body, I remember. I can tell you where it's from. I may not remember to close the fridge. I may not remember to do this. I know what infertility has done. So in November, we did another IVF cycle. This time, we were like, okay, we need to go in a different, like, you know, like mentality. We cannot, like, we'll lose our minds, we'll be done. Do you know what I mean? Like, we cannot afford to let this break us. And so we did that cycle. I remember like halfway through, he's like, okay, I'm not getting what I want, as you, like, you know, like that first time. So we pumped it up. He added another hormone. At this point, he's making them
because for me, it's like they're testing out. There's no real answer.
No,
it's like they're just like
Dami.
It's almost like an experiment.
And they told me that after, like, when I finally eventually went, they said, we're dealing with a wild card here. Like, it's one thing, and I'm not downplaying anything, but I'm saying, like, if they told me that it was this, and if they removed this, it was going to be this, that's easier to digest, right? Like, in your head, like, at least for you, from my point of view, it's easier to digest because you can say, this is what's going on. But when they tell you words like wild card, unexpected, unpredictable, like, what are you doing? So I'm just going
I'm
on.
trusting you guys as the experts, but you guys don't even know.
So, like, I really, truthfully, that period between 29 and 31, I don't remember much because, like, about other things. Because literally all I was committed to doing was getting pregnant. So, and, you know, like I said, IVF to me was, like, the answer. So, like, for it not to be working, the word I keep using is desperate. I was so desperate, like, to the point, like, I was so sad and broken. My mom booked a ticket, flew me to Nigeria, flew me to Redeem Camp to pray and hope. Like, just, like, I was so desperate. And even me, things that I would roll my eyes at, like, you know, little prayer, like, I mean, I am a Jesus girl, but, like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not, like, those things where I'm like, we don't have to do fancy. All of a sudden, I'm just lying on the floor begging for this to stop. Because I'm tired. So, like, sorry.
Okay.
Anyways, so yeah, so we got back. I went back to the doctor and he's like, oh, the hormone, like, we need to add some. We added like 6 or so. I only got to so many hormones they added into the thing. One to stop me from ovulating, so I want to stop me from doing, like, everything was just like this. And then we went back. He's like, okay, this looks like it's going, but we have to extend it. So, like, what would have been a 2-week protocol became a 5-week protocol. And so it just kept going. So I'm on these hormones. Like, do you, like, think about it? Like, we all know how, like, we don't know what artificial hormones can be.
You're going to work.
I'm going to work.
You're
yeah. I'm
outside
trying at most to
like,
be present.
Yeah.
And my friends, like, even like I don't know at what point we will get into that, but like how my friends really showed up in different ways. Like, there's no answer to what you need. So, like, my friend is suffering from sometimes she just send me a message, how are you? Or like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how's today? Like, you know, just little sprinkles. And then anyways, so we made it to the retrieval this time. We made it there. They said they got 10 eggs. I was like, huh? On one egg, this thing was so excited. The next day, they got 10 eggs. The next day, they said it was down to 5 eggs that actually were mature. So we haven't even gotten to fertility, but that 4 fertilized, which was a huge thing for us. Out of 5, 4 fertilized. So we're like, obviously, like, as usual, like, let's not get carried away because this is you know what I mean? He said with endometriosis, that's probably a really good result, you know what I mean? So we'll start waiting on the day-to-day. Hunger games is what I usually call it, because every day you're just waiting and like waiting. And so we waited the next day. I think we were down to 3. And then I do remember, honestly I can't remember 100%, but on day 3, which was the last one that was successful, day 3 was the day that they said, let's just put everything inside and hope for the best.
Again, you didn't wait till the 5th day. You did the 3rd.
But this time they were like, oh, on day 3 they called and they're like, oh, it looks like we're actually going to make it to day 5. We'll let you know how many make it there.
Okay.
So on day 5, 3 made it. So that was a huge deal for us. So we were like, okay, so this is the one. Like, we felt, I'm not going to lie, we felt like you could feel something different. You could feel something very different about it. So we knew that this was it. So we transferred 1. My doctor was like, okay, we need to stop transferring 2 because it's not like you have many. So let's stop.
So from
playing fast and loose. We transferred 1 and froze 2. We transferred that 1, and I felt good about it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, something in my spirit just shifted. I knew that something was going to happen, and So we tested, like I didn't have a period, like progesterone again. I was having those mimic symptoms. And on the 23rd of December, I'll never forget. Tell me, sorry, for your birthday, we got our negative. Yeah, sorry, Dami. sorry, Mobino. But I'll never forget because my mommy was visiting, and like it was just three of us at home. And I remember Lamde saying, like, I got the negative, so I told him. My mom is like, look, we're not going to break down. We can't. Your mom is here, like this thing. I remember like crying, but like, you know, just like at that point, you know, the feeling, I can look back, I remember the feeling, I was just so exhausted. And that, so when you asked me if like I ever felt like I wouldn't have a child, I think it was somewhere around here. I was just like,
there.
Yeah, I remember.
Tried and tried. You felt good with this round.
So good. Because, I mean, what again now? But now looking back, I know why I felt good, right? Because we had 2 embryos that were frozen. So that one didn't work out. And it's like, okay, but I think maybe also that gave you hope. Because it's like, okay, at least I don't have to keep going through that extensive amount of hormone injections, because now we have 2. The process to transfer is different from the process to retrieve.
Yeah.
So I think that was partly what helped. And I just, like, you know, we just prayed. It was 23rd. 22nd, I did my test. And 23rd, 22nd, me, I did a secret. I always do secret tests. And then on 23rd, we did the blood test. And it wasn't anything. So even, to be honest, this time, the nurse was like, Kunbi, I'm sorry. I was like, girl, let's just, it's okay. Like, what same shit.
Like, let's move on. Let's keep going. Yeah.
I didn't even know I was done.
You were done.
I was like not done. I was just like mentally I had checked out at that point. So Olamide on the other hand said he felt so hopeful. Me, I don't know if it's the peace. I just was like, I can't. So we went back for what we normally call a WTF appointment. I went back to my doctor at the end of January. And he's like, oh, I want us to do and some receptivity test and see if it works. I'm like, do whatever you want to do.
Whatever.
Like at this point, no, I'm not joking. I was just like, do whatever you want to do. Okay. I was really sure I was going to be pregnant by my 30th birthday, because that was going to be part of the like I can't drink, I'm pregnant. I drank, but so like, you know what I mean? Like everything with every milestone I was approaching, I'd be like, oh, this is it. Do you know what I mean?
You envision how you use that milestone to share the news.
Yes, sure like you envision everything. Yeah. So we did that test. They sent it to Sweden, in a lab in Sweden. It sent this thing. That test mimics an IVF protocol. So I was still taking injections. I was still taking this. They took me to somewhere. It just, you know, like, I don't even know if you can tell. I was just so tired. Yeah. I didn't even care who knew at this point. Like, this is what it is. So for 4 months, and everybody would tell you, like, a lot of times the doctors would be like, oh, we need to just keep going, we need to keep going. This was now like a 5-month span. I was just like, I can't do this. Like, please don't. Like, okay, so this is what you want to do, just do it. Okay. So it came back, they told me that the test said everything that they were doing was correct or something. Basically, like, they were on the right schedule. So okay, so we didn't find problem again. Long story short, they called me in March. I even saw it. Like, you know how you can scroll back to your calendar and see dates? So in March, they said, oh, all I saw was Dr. S appointment. So I went back to the appointment. And I don't know anything he said, to be honest. And he was like, oh, okay, so we have 2 embryos left. I think we should do 1 and see how it would go. It was around this time, I don't even know if Barry Dakara is on this thing. She had shared her infertility story or her journey. I think she was pregnant now. So she had shared that she was pregnant and her infertility. I think I went back and I emailed her too. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, desperation is just so much. You just be emailing, like, please, like, I'm also going through this. I think she said something like she'll pray for me. Like, different people I emailed, Lara Casey, and like, I was just emailing because really, you try anything. And so they said, okay, it's time to transfer. But the good news is that you don't have to do as much. They'll just do some injections, not all injections. And so we did the injections to prep my body for a transfer. And on April 25th, you see, you don't forget these dates. But April 25th, they transferred 1 embryo. I remember looking at the embryo. We prayed on it. I sent it to my mom because that was just always in prayer mode. I remember my sister and I looking at the embryo. I was like, this embryo doesn't look like all these other embryos we're seeing on the thing. Are we sure? We did that. We transferred that embryo. And we did the progesterone. We're just going. This was now 2017. Like honestly, like everything is a blur. Everything is a blur because on May 1st, let's say May 1st, yeah, it was around May 1st. Me and my friend Leila and Taya, we have a group chat. We just sending things like stupid like things. And then I'll send it to like Segi and stuff like that, just silly things. But I started testing because one day my sister and I were talking on like the beginning of May or something, and like my sister was like, "Oh, like, are you feeling anything?" I couldn't feel anything from the progesterone. So you know how I said progesterone always usually has like really intense like symptoms that will mimic. I didn't feel anything. Yeah. So my sister and I were FaceTime, and I was like, "Oh, I don't feel anything," and she's like, "Okay, so maybe we should just test now so that you can." It's about to be your birthday month. It's like
I was about to say now you've hit another birthday.
Oh yeah, another birthday, 31. So like. It's time, like, she said, let's just test. That's how we tested it, Dami. And let me tell you something, if infertility girls know, you buy those mass packs of
strip
ones.
Strips.
You pick those strips, those one full strips from Amazon. Yep. So I had like 100 one full strips. So we tested, and I'm telling you that even the person with the most 20/20 vision couldn't see a line, but my sister saw it.
He saw it.
Mm-hmm. I said, oh no, it didn't work. Oh, look, she said, wait a minute, let's start. She did black and white this thing. Dami, I'll never forget that day for the rest of my life. I'll never forget that day. And this was like 4 days or 3 days before we were supposed to test. And Olamide and I promised each other that we wouldn't test until this day. So I said, no problem, of course, as usual. So I created a group chat. I'll send them each, like, can you see it? Can you see it? You know, when you start looking and you're like, okay. And the thing I didn't mention, before was like in December, we had used one of those strips, and Olamide and I both saw a line, but it was the folding line. It was a line. So we started jumping, and it was not a positive. So imagine, and then, so this time we did it, and we saw that line. We saw it. Like, but it wasn't really, the line that you have to see under the sun. Yeah. So she was like, okay, let's wait till tomorrow, I think. Then we'll start again. Do you know what I mean? And then we started checking, and every day the line was just getting darker and darker and darker. And I could not believe it. Like, when something you've been trying to get to for so long, you couldn't, like, it's so, like, honestly, I did not picture being a mother. I'd never even gotten to that point ever in my life. All I knew was trying to get a positive on my Chinese strip. So you didn't even think of what would happen when you did. I didn't even know.
We need a praise break. Okay. Everybody. We know. We know. Kunbi.
Sorry. So somebody just said something, and all I keep remembering is just like that. I will always talk about the God of suddenly. In a minute, and in probably the minute that I wasn't expecting it, because I was already telling Shaya that it was a bust. It was like, Shaya went online in her fake account in one of these forums in Canada. She posted the picture. Rera, you're alone. Mind your business. So, like, she posted it, and it was just this one of the things I could not believe it. Let me tell you something.
Kunbi, can I ask you a question? In that moment, did it feel like everything else was erased? Did it feel that way?
Like, honestly, it didn't even feel like anything. It felt surreal. Like, the kind of thing where you're suspended in a moment. So you're just like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. But the thing that infertility will do to you is that you're always waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Oh.
I just told you about how I thought it was a win before, and then it wasn't. Mm-hmm. So every single thing is me holding my breath. Like, let's wait till we see the numbers. Because guess what? The fertility girls will know. It's not about the line on the stick. It's about the beta that you're going to take. Yeah. You're going to have to do the HCG test.
Yeah.
And find out if this is even a viable pregnancy.
Yeah.
You're going to have to wait again 48 hours to see if it doubles.
Yeah.
And then wait again to see if it doubles again. And even then, you start hearing things like, oh, it's a molar pregnancy. Or, oh, it's an empty sac. I'm so sorry if this is triggering anybody. And then it's like, oh, it didn't stay. So all these things are thoughts in your head. So, but for this moment, I'm screaming. All of a sudden, I'm creating collages of my progression lines, how the lines are getting, and then I got a pregnant positive in the digital. And you know, a digital means that pregnancy is at least
that's how you know it's real, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
So that, like, it's like everything, you start to now make sure that the numbers are actually going up. It's getting darker. I think by day 5, so it was we tested on, I'm saying this for the women in here that know what I'm talking about, but we tested 5 DPT, which was 5 days post-transfer. Do you see how I started using hashtags? I was on Instagram. If you're looking for community, even if you don't want to say anything, you just want to observe other people, start using hashtags like 5 DPT, 6 DPT, 7 DPT, because those are like X days post a 5-day transfer. So my test was on 12 DPT. So all this time I had to now keep it from Lamo because I didn't want him to know what was going on. But I think he kind of knew. I'm not a good liar.
You couldn't act normal now. He knew.
I was like, so I didn't even think I'd come in. I was like, you know that I kind of like. So I was like, what you did is positive this time. What you did is a surprise. So yeah. So the day before we were supposed to do the transfer, actually we were supposed to be 10 days post transfer was the day they said that they would do ours. And on 9 DPT we did, and that was when we got the digital positive. He fell to the ground, was so pumped. And then we went to the doctor, we did the blood test. I got a call. The doctor's assistant, the other doctor from outside, everybody was on the call. They're like, oh, Kunbi, we're all here. I was like, here we go.
Because your success story.
It was 2:21 p.m. They called me. I would never forget. I put them on speakerphone and they were like, we are so happy to tell you that you have a positive. I remember that my HCG, for those who care, my HCG was like, I think it was either 200 and something. So for like 10 days, I think they said it was okay or whatever. And so I remember calling then they called me for the 8 hours because I had to go again for another test, and it was 700 and something. So I knew that, okay, at least doubled. It doubled. And then we did it again. I can't remember what number it was. And then it was now, you now have to hold your breath for an ultrasound. The ultrasound was still going to have to happen. Because now they have to confirm that not only did it take, you can get a positive pregnancy test, and then you can get there, and then there's nothing, like the sac is empty. So we got there. We heard the heartbeat, like it just started getting, like we heard a heartbeat earlier than we thought. Like, Dami, like, you know what, it's just like,
you're holding your breath.
I didn't have morning sickness. I didn't, like, things just like, all of a sudden, this is the only part that I knew. This is the part I got to. Do you know what I mean? Like, I didn't have any picture of what life could be outside of that. So now all of a sudden I start thinking about, oh, I'm about to be a mother.
You're about to be a mother.
I woke up, I remember my friend Danielle told me that she's like one of her spiritual sisters was like, oh, that she had been seeing, like, this was the year before, that she had been seeing Kunbi holding a little boy. They're okay. So like,
do you know what I remember?
Yeah.
We weren't that, I mean, we always knew each other. Like, I feel like our closeness happened in the last 5 years. I remember you sharing about your fertility journey. So I remember the announcement with the denim. Didn't you guys have like denim in like Orlando?
In blue. In Orlando.
Yes.
So we got married in Orlando. So we went back there, and I knew that I wasn't going to announce until after 20 weeks. And I actually didn't even know I was going to announce. But like, I had started writing my infertility story the week we were going to do our transfer. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, so I remember, like, I hadn't. No,
I wasn't sure who that was going to be at the end.
I don't want to cop out and say I knew. I think I was just writing it because it felt in my spirit that it was time to share my story, because I was really just tired. And I felt like it was a conversation that wasn't happening. I was always sharing weddings and the happily ever after, but real talk, happily ever after, that's not how it goes. Like, happily ever after looks different for everybody.
For everyone.
So like, for me, that was like, it was just me writing. I wanted to remember. And let me tell you something. Another thing the hormones will do is also affect your memory.
Your memory.
So I wanted to like just write it down. Do you know what I mean? So when I got the positive, I was now even more gingered to finish the story, right? And then I didn't want to. My mom said I shouldn't tell anybody because you know the spirit is. It's not gonna be out there. And something just kept coming into my spirit saying, Kunbi, open your mouth. Share. Just share. Because like this is something so ridiculous that you have gone through that needs to be said. So I was like, okay, I will share, like maybe just write. I wrote everything. It was already done by like May, but like it was now September. I was like, okay, maybe I'll like, we were about to be 5 years into marriage. It was our 5th anniversary shoot. I was like, oh, Lamo, wouldn't it be cool if we went back to Orlando? That's how I trapped him first. I was like, we'll go back to Orlando. Of course, Shaya sent a message and was like, I'm coming too with my friends. Came with like 3 of my friends for just our anniversary trip. So we went back there. And then I now reached out to my wedding planner. And I was like, oh, so I'm pregnant. And I thought it would be really cool to do an anniversary shoot, like, but also be a pregnancy announcement. I didn't really, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we weren't sure where it was going to go. But I sent my friend Bolale, like, my drafts. So she read it, edited it, did all those things. Bolale doesn't play. So we, sorry guys, I know I'm rambling. It was
You're not rambling. You're not.
And I've jumped over so many happenings.
Because it's not even possible for you to.
No, I remember everything. I just don't want
say everything.
I'll go into a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
So then we went obviously as soon as I told Kristen, our old wedding planner, she's like, oh, let's go. She had gathered troops. This girl did not charge me a dime. Hey. She gathered everything. She was so happy. And like she's so excited. So we shot it. Like we all like, now everything fanfare for me. You already know. So I had gone on Etsy, found denim jackets, like a whole thing. And I mean, before we even did our gender reveal, I think maybe like at the 7th week, I knew what I was having. I knew it was a boy. So like I just knew. I couldn't see him, but I knew that I just knew what was happening. So like we did that. We knew it was a boy. So we like, not that it matters. We just like, it was like really, we were in blue from head to toe because we knew how hard we had fought for this moment. But not that it matters how hard you fight, truly, it doesn't matter. Because sometimes you think that it's the most important, like that this is about to happen. And then you find out a day before Christmas that that's not what's going to happen. You're supposed to sit down there and like this was, and if you remember my last pregnancy test, like the first pregnancy test I took was December, like the first one that was negative was
December 20th.
A while ago, but December 22nd was the last one. So that was the last one I got that was negative. And so like all of this happened, and then we found out that my child's due date was my sister's birthday in January, like January 11th. So she was so excited, and we just kept going. But then we announced on September 1st, we announced, and I will never forget like posting it as part of my and like just a 5-year look back about my infertility story. I just really could not keep it quiet. I needed to talk about the infertility aspect of it. It wasn't even really about the end, but more about like what we were going through, because it was really ridiculous. That was what we were going through in my head. I've never seen a response like that. Like I was not expecting that. And especially for a wedding blog. My blog was still called I'll Perfect then. It was all about weddings. It was never about this. So sharing it just felt odd and misplaced. But wow.
I'm pretty sure people feel the same way about me sharing talking about this on an invitations page.
Yeah.
But the response has been unreal. It be like I'm just reading these comments like
I can't even see any of them. So, yeah, like I've never seen anything like that before. I still get messages from people. I just shared everything, and then my mom like almost lost her mind. She called me the next day. She called my friend Kike's mom. She called Seki's mom. Who did she not call to report me that I'm trying to ruin her? That how would I share such a miracle
like
before?
Taboo in the African culture. Yeah. Not only when you're even pregnant, you're not supposed to share. Because you're supposed to wait until the baby comes and everything is fine, right? Yes. Talk less of sharing such an intimate struggle.
She was, I mean, obviously, like my mom had been through my journey. My mom was like one of the first people to know as soon as, like each time she knew what was going on. And so like she was so sad and so like the truth is she was scared. That's the truth. Like she was scared, like frightened because this had happened, and like she was so afraid.
And there's also nothing, as a mom, you know that now, Kunbi, like,
like I'm so protective.
You want to protect them, and like, there's nothing you can do.
Nothing. And so now I had opened this big thing into the world. It wasn't even about the story, because that part I know I had told her that I feel like God wants me to share this. And like looking back now, I know why I went through it. Do you know what I mean? And I'll get to that. So we're 20 weeks. We shared this, and the amount of messages, like it was just incredible. Like the messages I got, it wasn't even messages, not necessarily messages. Like I got messages of support. Thank you, Shala. But like the messages from other women, I didn't know anybody else that had endometriosis apart from my friend Buki. Sorry, Buki. But but she did. Like she had surgery. Like she wasn't married yet, so like she hadn't. Like she would tell her story. But like it was just wow. Like reading somebody. I will never forget. Somebody sent me a picture of the exact same scars I had on my belly, which I still have, and I was like, it just made me feel like it was something that needed
like
to
an
be
outlier.
said. Yes, there's so many people that I prayed with, so many people that I followed their journey, and it was just, like just grew. And then basically I was due in middle of January, and then maybe like I had like the most uneventful pregnancy, to be honest. Like it was
Thank
just
God.
really easy.
Thank
You,
God.
Jesus. But I honestly believe that God knew that it was now too much.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like he owed me. But
no, seriously. I mean,
but then I think like maybe 2 months before, like right after my baby shower in November, I started like swelling up, and I had something called polyhydramnios, which is basically excess amniotic fluid in your belly. And they had done like standard like elimination, genetic abnormality elimination tests during the, like when they found out his gender. And then because it was an IVF baby, we actually had to get monitored significantly more. You know this, I told you. But like we had to see an MFM doctor, which is maternal fetal medicine, which is basically a high risk doctor. They check for their heart and things like that. So they had already eliminated that. But then when the polyhydramnios started, they were like, oh, well, so me and my sister went back to our forums. We started seeing words like Down syndrome, like abnormalities, things like that could cause it, but they won't know until birth. So obviously there was a lot of anxiety in me, like as to what would be the situation, like what I would have to like be handling. And anyways, because of that polyhydramnios, I was high risk. I was considered that. So on like 36 weeks, they said apparently a month before at the hospital I was going to be delivering, a woman had the same symptoms. And then I'm like sad, but like her child didn't make it because like they had, long story short, it wasn't what it was supposed to be. So with my polyhydramnios, my doctor was very specific, especially she knew she was my OBGYN too, like non-fertility doctor, but OBGYN. So she already knew the drama I was coming with. So she was very, very conservative. So at like 36 weeks and 6 days, she induced me. So the idea was that, okay, we'll just induce you and then it will come about. I now meeting the person that came out, I understand. He didn't want to come out. He was not interested. He really enjoyed what he was doing in there. So I was there for a couple of days, and then I had to have a C-section at 37 weeks. And that day is literally one of the reasons why I'm on this earth. I know that. Like that day, like anybody that's had a child knows, like whichever way, or anybody, like, but there's something physical, like for C-section moms, I think you know specifically what I'm talking about, when the minute the baby they remove detaches with the tug, and that detach, I felt heaven. I felt something that I've never felt before. Like I felt something truly remarkable. And that was the day that my son came. He came a month early, and well, a month-ish, but like that is you know, that is what it was. And so you just know the minute that your body has detached from, like the minute they leave. I met my son, and like honestly my life just went into this day. And so after that, like it just became really, I found a community that I cannot describe. Women that had gone through IVF, women that had even just gone through infertility, women that were like just starting. I was able to speak to someone about it, and I honestly was content. I knew that I was just going to be, like, we had the one child, but we still had that one frozen embryo, you know, from that December retrieval. That one where I thought it was, like, it was horrible, but we didn't feel, we're like, you know, it was a weird feeling because I knew how devastating it was, and I felt that on one end, but it's just like, something just felt like it was going to be okay. So we left it, like, the embryo bank was charging me $850 a year. The fact that I don't forget. But like, so they were still calling, and then actually, so in 2020, we're like, oh yeah, like anybody that has met my son knows how much like he's light and joy, troublesome, but like just light. So like it was that, and then we went through that for a long, like we were just okay being that one, and then but the idea, like my sister my sister kept asking about like, what about this other embryo, what are we going to do with it? Some people said, oh, maybe we should just donate it. That my sister was like, this is supposed to happen.
Were you scared to like reopen a trauma when you felt like you've kind of reached
100%.
the road, sort of, and then like having to go back and put your heart out there again?
100%. That was mostly the reason. Also, the reason that we didn't test our embryos. Like usually with IVF on the 5 days, if you have multiple ones, some people would do something called PGD. Yeah, PGD to test and see whether like, yes, we wanted to leave her, but like we didn't test PGD, so we didn't know gender, we didn't know anything about them. And then I don't know, like I don't want to speak out of turn here, but what typically happens like with like mass retrievals or like retrievals is like the percentages as to whether or not some will be abnormal. Like not all of them are good.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like you don't like when you do the PGD results, you see like be like, oh, like only like 20% or X amount is like okay, the other one. So it was already we knew nothing about this embryo. So we didn't want to like, you know, the idea of like okay, transferring and then it being not like just like it not taking, leading to miscarriage. Like it was just a whole thing. And so we weren't sure. So like long story short, like we didn't know if it was going to be like more and more like we'll talk about it and we'll be like, oh, we're not sure if this embryo is actually even okay. Or, like what's the point of going into this whole thing and then it now be a disappointment, like in that it ends in a miscarriage or a loss or anything like that. So it was not the last year, like we're like, okay, this year after this year, maybe we shouldn't pay again. We should tell them to like, because this 850 is not becoming much.
Yeah.
And then we prayed, but we were like, okay, let's try pray about it. So we prayed. It was Lent 2021. And Olamide had come back and said, oh, you know what? Let's go ahead. Like, let's go ahead. So once he said, let's go ahead, I think I was less like no, anti it, for lack of a better word. So I was like, okay, that's no problem. Let's do it. And so we went ahead. We said, okay, no. So we reached out to, we had already moved again to another state. We had moved back to New York. So we had to now call them and we're like, oh, I think we have an embryo here. Can we, like, they pushed me from one place to another. And we finally got to who it was. And our doctor had left, like, wasn't the doctor that was going to be handling it. Another doctor came and was like, well, so much has changed since, it's been 4 years. So much has changed since then. But we're thinking, like your case, like they literally put it there because they were so stressed about the whole process. Like we actually don't want to try any of the new methods or whatever. We just literally want to replicate whatever it is that we did here. Like, so what we're going to do is we're going to go back and read every single thing. Like some of the things weren't typical anymore, but we literally just want, like, I can't remember what he said. Something about not reinventing the wheel, but he said something like that made me laugh, where he was like, oh, let's just go ahead and do exactly what we did. And like, we can't guarantee it because, I mean, it's a 4-year-old embryo, but that's not the issue. It was more no, actually, I think it was even, the embryo was from 2016, but it was now 2021. And he's like, oh, like, that's not a problem, but like, you know, we'll just see. But the problem is we even need to wait. Like when you defrost, some embryos get damaged through the thawing process. But you don't even know that until the day
you can use it.
But you can't even make sure until the morning of the transfer. So you wait, you dress up and you'll be going to the party and they can tell you whether or not to attend or not. Hunger Games. So so long story short, how many times have I said that? Long story short, we decided to go ahead with it. Did my prep again. I had to take Lupron microdose and prepare my body for the transfer. And wow. So what we ended up doing was I had to start driving all the way to Pennsylvania to get the transfer done. So I would drive there and get my like tests done. I would drive there, and she is a hateful beast. Anyway, I drive there, do the injections, drive there, come back, and then we went together. They now said, wait, they now added something. They're like, oh, because so much time has gone, there's now new protocol. They had to test both of us again to see if we're carriers of something. Long story short, we got there. We did the transfer. It was, we just hoped for the best. We hoped for the best. This time, again, I had no symptoms. So which we thought was curious.
Kind of.
Yeah, because every other time that I've not had a positive, I've had so many symptoms, like every pregnancy symptom possible. This time again, I had no symptoms. As usual, I was talking to you know who. So we're just talking. She's like, oh, how are you feeling? I'm like, I'm not feeling anything. We started checking Instagram hashtags again. We saw another person who did the transfer on the same day with me. So we'll follow the woman. The poor woman doesn't even know what's going on. We'll just be reading rubbish and like just this thing. And my best friend told me that I should not check anything. That's not how it works.
Kunbi check.
Of course I checked. So we tested again, this time even earlier, and it was a positive. It was a positive from the beginning, like 3 days after the transfer. Like
I
3 days.
remember. I might have called somebody that morning.
Yeah. You know. So
Wow.
this time, like, we were so open about the transfer because at the end of the day, like, we knew. I mean, obviously, we were on the side where we were a little comfortable with the fact that we knew we had one child already. But it was still like, just getting back into that space, I was so triggered. There's so many things that I didn't talk about, like how I thought, like the month before we decided to do transfer, I was really trying to get pregnant because I'm going to be like, oh, like I didn't even have to use this embryo. Do you know what I mean? And it didn't work. In fact, I didn't even get my period for like 20 days. I think it was anyways. Like I didn't get my period for 20 days. I think you know this. And like I thought I was pregnant, but I wasn't. I called my friend. I was just wailing on the phone, and it just triggered me and brought me back to a place again where a place that I keep trying not to go back to because it was so dark. Infertility is so lonely. Like it doesn't matter how many people know. It doesn't matter how many people tell you it's going to be okay. Like inside your body, like it's just so lonely. Whew.
Wow.
So I just remember being triggered. So this time I was just so I couldn't believe. Like I believed it, but like I couldn't believe it. And then also I was pregnant again. Like So I did my progression lines again. Like did all of that. Held my breath because I knew I went to I went into the blood test. So let's say the blood test was on Monday. I went and booked. I found Quest Lab and I booked my own private blood test. Nah,
but that's what infertility will do to you.
That's what it will do to you. I booked my own blood test and I went there. I did it. I don't even think the results came. They now told me that the results won't come out until Monday. The same Monday.
The same Monday you have to go to the doctor.
So I did the test.
Your kids.
Yeah.
Does it feel so real?
It does. A lot of times it does. Like sometimes. So that's basically the story. And like looking at them now, it takes my breath away. I cannot believe it. Like sometimes I'll just look at them and stare, and I'll look at like particularly my son because that really changed the game for me. Like something like he made me believe that he changed my belief. So for like I'll look at him sometimes and I'm like, I can't believe he's here, and then I'll see my daughter and I cannot, like, she for some reason like blows my mind. Like not only did I have one child, but I had two.
And then with the last two,
literally my last two shots. Because one thing I didn't mention is that during this talk they started talking about like donors. Like maybe using a donor embryo and using a donor egg, or maybe using a surrogate. So these are conversations that were happening. And so seeing them here, honestly, nothing like it. Like it's something that truly blows my mind. That they're here, that they're healthy. I don't take it for granted. I'm in awe.
And just to reiterate something that Kunbi said, and I really want to harp on that for a minute. Even though y'all, this is the longest live we've ever done, and I love it for us. It's our last one, and I feel like we had to have this conversation. But don't yuck someone's yum. I tell that to my sons all the time, which is because you don't understand how something tastes for someone, you now are saying, she eats too much, she plays too much. And I'm saying that in the sense of like the way people things in their lives.
Yeah.
You don't know the recipe to their story. You don't know why they're choosing to charter a yacht and have somebody fly around and say
Listen,
happy birthday, Ara. Like,
listen.
you don't know why people are choosing to do what they want to do. If they want to go, like, there's no such thing as extra. You know, we like to can and limit people's joy and celebration. After waiting for, Kunbi, would you say 5 years? 5 years for someone to now tell you are doing too much.
Nobody can
You can't
even tell me that I'm doing
even
too
tell me
much.
that.
Nobody
But
can tell me
this
I'm
is
doing
just
too much.
permission to any and everyone. And even if you don't have a 5-year fertility story, I don't, but I still celebrate because life should be celebrated.
I believe that.
But even more so when you see someone who's rolling on the ground, just thank God on their behalf instead of saying anything.
That's all you should, like, it's not even a matter of rolling your eyes or anything like that. Sorry, Shaya just made a good point.
What you say?
Ore came a month earlier, like almost a month earlier, because it came on the day that I had my last negative pregnancy test.
Look at that.
It came on that day. It came the last time.
wanted to turn that day around for you.
Literally within a year of that last one, he came and he changed. Like, so for me, everything is so, like, I know what I saw in that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I know how hard it was, not just for me, but for everybody around me to experience that. So if I decide I want to rent a blimp, is that what it's called? If I decide that a marching band is going to scream every single time my son turns something, even if it's, I'm going to do 5.5.
My sister, why not? 5. I like the ring of that.
Yeah. My daughter's first birthday, I called someone and I said, please, I want a custom song.
As you should.
I want a custom song.
As you should.
I felt my daughter's name. I knew what I wanted to name my child. I knew it was a girl. Remember I told you, like, mad early. I knew what her name was going to be. All of this to say, like, whatever it is, like, you need to celebrate. Whatever you need to feel like you felt like you have conquered. Don't let anybody tell you any different, because celebration is in the little details. Celebration is not necessarily, you don't wait to celebrate. People are dropping dead every single day. You know what I mean?
And young
people are dropping within seconds of this conversation. Like, so what we know, like, you know whatever it is that your personal struggle is. If it's a job, like, if you get that job that you've been waiting on, celebrate that shit. Don't let anybody tell you any different. Because really, we all know what we're struggling with. We all know. Celebrate friendship. That's one thing I'm always extra about. I really want them to I want them to know that I see them, like in whatever it is. And I'm not, like, I'm a flawed friend for sure. Because a lot of times, the reality is that we're all going through something. And one thing I found that even the littlest thing that you could be going through could seem like the biggest thing, and it just consumes us, because that's what adulthood is. So I don't hold grudges about that. And I know, like, I keep going back to the fact that I feel like I know why I went through that, because guess what? After I went through that, I was able and I hope capable to be there for my friends, to be there for people that are so close to me that were going through, like, similar journeys. Because then, me too, I'm able to tell you that I know what 5 days post-transfer means. And I know what it means when it's time that you're going to get order McDonald's fries because it's IVF time. I know what you're thinking about when it's a day 3 embryo or things like that. But then, like, I had at least an ability to be there, because it's so lonely. Regardless of what it is, mine is an endometriosis story. But, like, man, infertility has many faces. And then the worst one, in my own opinion, is unexplained infertility. Where they tell you that we can't see anything wrong, but here we are. So, like, there's just so much there's so much room for us to be able to be there for the next person in whatever capacity it is, even if it's just like a text you up, how you doing?
So, Kunbi, you're already segueing into my
bad.
I really don't even want it to be my final question, because I had a lot more questions, but I feel like I need to get IG is going to cut my life.
I know.
And then
Sorry.
No. So, Kunbi, you've talked about so many ways that people showed up for you. And I think most of the most important things you've been saying is that people, community, my sister, Sheye, Nobel Peace Prize for you, my sister. I mean, let me drop $5 in your hand. But you've talked about the people, the blogs, the community, and it sounds to me like that's what held you through. Is there anything else that you can think of? Is there any other resource that you can think of that could be of service to anybody else that is here, that might know someone who's trying to conceive or that's going through it themselves? Like, what were the things that, like, you found a little bit of, like, Peace in. $10. Don't worry, I got to share it.
Only. But like there's various things. So for me, like I don't know if I say it enough. Like one of the biggest things was I felt very desperate. Like very desperate to hear from somebody else, to speak to somebody else. Do you know, after I shared my story, one girl sent me a message like, you don't know me, but I have a friend that's really on the cusp of this. Can you call her?
Wow.
And I called her. I spoke to her. There's nothing, I knew there was nothing that could be said that was going to change it, but I knew what she was feeling.
Yeah.
So like for some of us, like for some people, it's the phone call. For some people, it's just even like maybe not the phone call. Maybe they don't want to be like this thing in there. It's more like the message. Like, what do you need? What do you need an answer to? Which part? What part is? What are you struggling with? Do you know what I mean? For me, it's the forums, especially if you want to be anonymous. So I tried to do a forum, but it was really hard to like keep up with everything. Yeah. So I would share the ones that I found like they change every time.
For it, and we'll send it after.
Like even baby center because like even baby center, which is supposed to be about babies, baby center has its own forum. So I was on that forum checking everybody that had transfers. I'm sorry, I'm going to expose myself here, but like my transfer was like with Ora was April 25th, like I mentioned. My transfer with Ara, I don't remember. Girl, sorry. But my transfer with Ara was May 21st. So like it was 2 days before my birthday. On my birthday, I remember Balani was asking me like, what do you want to do? I said, girl, I don't want to do anything. So I cried. I think I even cried. I was so sad because I was so anxious. Do you know what I mean? Like just anxious. And then I think maybe a couple of like on my birthday, so I was so anxious and everything. And then it was like 2 days after my birthday that I got the positive. But like what I'm getting at is like, you know, like just like check those forums. Sometimes you just want to be anonymous. So you go to the bump. I don't know if the bump has one, but Baby Center definitely has one. If anybody has any other ones that they want to drop in the comments, because the community, there are actual I'll send links to you, Dami, of all the various ones that I've seen. But like community is so important. If you're thinking about what to do now, my friend Amy sent me, Amy and Dami, because she ended up telling me it was Amy and Dami. But like they sent me, like he sent me an Uber Eats gift card. Because maybe during the 2-week wait, maybe they don't want to have to think about like, you know, food or like having to think or stand up there. Send a text, send a gift, send a book. Like somebody sent me a journal. But more than anything else is those random text messages when somebody sends me a message and says, hey, how are you doing? Like, how's this going? I know it's really hard right now. I love you. Or I know you don't want to talk about this. You don't have to talk about this, but you're good. Or on a scale of 1 to 10, like like what someone would say, how is it going? Some of my friends on the other hand would be like, show me that stick. Do you want to pee on the stick again? Let's confirm that you're pregnant. Like, do you know what I mean? Like anything that's going to make you feel sane. Because one thing, like anybody will tell you, is like do you know how many times I peed on a stick? I counted 45 times for Ara.
Wow.
And this is even after they told me that Ara's HCG was indicating that I was having triplets. I should have known that was what was coming out of my body. But my daughter's HCG was so high to the point that we were sure that it was like, it had to be like multiple. So I was going to join my multiple family of my girls. Alas, it was a girl. So you know what I mean? Like just showing up in that way. One thing that I maybe it's my Redeemed Christian Church of God background or whatever, where I'm into bracelets. Do you know what I mean? So I remember like somebody sent me, this is not any of them now, but like somebody sent me a bracelet that just said like hope or soon or something. And it was like, you know, things that will help somebody remember that they're not alone. Because a lot of times what infertility will do is isolate you mentally first, then isolate you physically. Because you isolate yourself mentally and then after a while you withdraw because you really don't want to be around people because you're not happy. And that isolation is so heavy. Like the two things, it first comes the isolation and second comes the desperation. Because after a while, you just like, your brain is moving in a way that you just need answers. You need somebody to tell you that it's going to be okay. You need somebody to tell you that you need to stop. You need somebody to tell you that this is not something that you're going to have to do for the rest of your life. And then, of course, this is when older parents and people want to tell you about that 65-year-old lady that had twins. And you're like, okay, I hear you. But that's not what I need to hear now. So sometimes you also have to like be very careful about the kind of things you say, like, oh, like you had a miscarriage, but at least we know that you were able to have a baby. You know what I mean? Or like, you know what I'm saying? Like, or, oh, at least you have this baby, or at least you have this, because infertility looks different for everyone. The secondary infertility, I know women who have been trying to have a second child for such a long time. And like, honestly, it doesn't matter what you tell them. You can tell them from now to tomorrow that you have this one, be happy, be happy, be happy. But that's not what it's, that has nothing to do with it for them. And in their brain right now, they feel alone and they feel sad. And a lot of stuff that we just forget about is that can really change your world. So like, for me, the things like just that community was so important to me. So important to me.
And that is the running thread for every single conversation we've had this entire time. Friday, or what they know, Monday to Friday is community. And that's it. I feel like I should ask you what resources, but I feel like you've already given it to us.
No, yeah. So definitely the forums.
Email me some, but if anyone like jumps in your mind. So the final question I have asked everyone is, what are some mommy resources that you can share that can help us all in our journey? It can be specific to trying to conceive or just in general. So just throw it at us, and then we're going to share it in our blog. No, not blog. What is it? Our newsletter that comes right after. So if you also want to get this, please just go to our link in bio. Sign up for the newsletter. I promise you it's going to come at like 8 p.m. today. Okay.
Also, most important, like not most importantly, but something you should also check is boxedbydami.com. They also do have a box for mothers in waiting, because I don't understand what the purpose is. I'm not going to share. That's your damn business. Let me finish. Okay. So like, if you go there and if you shop that's really important, because then you're able to, because a lot of people I found, like a lot of people kept asking the same question: what do I get, or what do I share with someone that's doing? Because it's so complicated, it's so complex. Like, you know, the people that are not, that can't wake up and get out of bed every day because they're so overwhelmed with like their fertility journey. So like, being able to send something to them or something just to show that you are around, and that you know, like, you might not know what it is that they're going through, but you're able to share like that you're there, like they know that you are keeping space for them is really important. For me,
you knew I was not going to go. Let me add one thing to it. When we curated that box, I actually kind of had you in